Close enough.
Close enough, yes.
So, why are we here?
The Bright Session, Season 3 and 4.
I don't know how we're going to talk about this within the space of one episode. I was thinking this the whole time I was listening to it, but we're going to try.
Yeah. I'll say first off, Season 3, hands down the best season of the show, in my opinion.
Yeah, I think I have to agree with that, yeah.
The production quality gets much better. And then also, like, the plotting and the characters are just all so, like, tasty. And you're getting all the angst of, like, Mark and Sam and Joan and everything. Yeah. Whereas, like, I feel like Season 4 is a lot more sort of, like, quiet aftermath. Like, there's not really any big plot going. It's kind of just like, oh, we're all fucked up now.
Yeah, Season 3 is very much building to Safe House. And Safe House is such a good payoff for the end of Season 3. And then Season 4 is mostly Fallout as a season.
Yeah, which we love. You wouldn't get it in a book because it's a podcast. You get a whole season of, and now we're going to sit with our feelings.
As we're like on the subject of the seasons and the overarching plot, I caught up for Safe House. That is when I jumped onto it airing. So there was still speculation as in how was the show going to end. Like I was in the fandom very much entrenched while people were discussing how is this all going to play out. And there was a scenario where Lauren Shippen was at, I want to say, a convention with a couple of other podcast writers, and there was a discussion about endings. And Lauren Shippen famously said that she likes unsatisfying endings, which sent everyone else at the table into a tailspin, and they reported this, I think, to Twitter. And I remember panicking about this personally. But I still don't really know if I find Season 4 unsatisfying, because in my brain it's not really the end of the Bright Session.
Yeah.
The AM Archives arguably is a spin-off, but I don't really feel like it is a spin-off because it is just a direct continuation with basically the same cast of characters.
I agree, yeah.
The College Tapes, I'd argue, is a spin-off because it only contains 2 really of the core characters. Well, not 2. Mark is there as well. 3 of the core characters leading and influencing the plot that we already know.
Mm. But the AM Archives is so much more direct because Season 4, it does end unsatisfyingly, but I talked about this with another friend discussing whether Season 4 ends that way because they had made a deal with Luminary, and so it sort of suddenly were like, oh, we have to build up for that. And so the end of the Bright Sessions gets lost in the setup for the AM Archives, or if that was always the plan, which I don't know. But it does definitely feel like Season 4 is kind of just like, and now there's this thing.
A lot of Season 4 does feel like setup. A little bit annoyingly, not all of it does get payoff, even in the AM Archives. I don't want to go too into the AM Archives now, because obviously we're not trying to spoil it here. But, for example, there's a lot of setup that this is going to be the core group versus Wadsworth, which kind of just falls apart. And I appreciate why it makes sense that the AM would be on Wadsworth's side, and she would manage to outmaneuver them. I get that. But I'm also a little bit like, would it be more interesting if this was? And also there's so much setup for we are going to expose atypicals. That keeps getting brought up. Wadsworth is saying there's a higher atypical population. Anything they do, it always comes back to, but we can't risk exposing atypicals. I would love to at least see a beautifully written alternate universe fic. There's a couple that have been started and abandoned because I found them and I've seen them. And in many ways, I feel like that's what the whole series is building towards. And then that is not what happens, which isn't necessarily bad, but I don't know. I would have loved to see it.
It's certainly unsatisfying if you think of it as the final season.
Yeah, if it just stopped here, oh my god.
I would say not unsatisfying in the way of sort of like, it leaves you with questions, and more in the feeling of like, where's the next season? Like, you got cancelled halfway through? Is that what happened? Like, as much as I sing this show's praises, I feel like that's its weakest part.
Yeah, I agree with that, because it's not like, oh, this is like an open-ended kind of ending. It's like, we've had rising action, and then we've suddenly just stopped. Like, it actually just feels like the wrong part of the roller coaster, if that makes sense.
Which is why I'm very glad they've now put the whole thing just on the Bright Sessions feed as different seasons.
Available for free. Yeah.
Because otherwise it's devastating.
Morgan, who's your favourite character in seasons 3 and 4?
Oh, I'm going to say Wadsworth.
Ooh.
I think that her actress...
Oh my god, yeah.
Just has such a way with the character and such a specific way of talking.
So good.
Her whole intonation and just the way she delivers lines is so insane. It's not even that I particularly care about the character, although I do because of the acting, but just the acting is crazy. I can see this character on the screen. I can see everything that she embodies. I have I've written Bright Sessions fanfic. No one will ever find it. Inhabiting other characters' voices. There's a certain amount of work that goes into it. Mm-hmm. There is no work in finding Wadsworth's voice because it's so specific.
It is,
and so different. Oh, there's like certain bits where she's like talking and then she like tricks another character into saying something and she's like, see, yeah, and now we go on to this. And it's such a specific way that she sort of does that double take. And it makes me insane.
She's an incredibly well-written manipulator. I feel like sometimes people want to write manipulative characters and they don't know how to be manipulative. I'm not saying that Lauren Shippen is manipulative. It's not going to be cancelled. But I'm saying that she at least knows how to inhabit a manipulative character. Clearly, because Wadsworth is so skilled at it.
The way she just twists everybody about. And then her episode where she's like having a breakdown in Joan's office being like, I don't know what I'm doing. What's it like to doubt yourself? I've never done that before. Literally, she's like an icon. That meme that's like, do you think she exhibited girl power when she deployed military troops in Northern Ireland?
Yeah.
It's like, you know, this is that character.
Yeah, the Wadsworth episode is so good. One thing I do really like about season 4 is having an episode focused on every character and having that format of them waking up and going through one day. It's very fun. And then that conversation between Adam and Wadsworth in the car, where Adam is genuinely just trying to figure out where Wadsworth is coming from on this. And then he says, but we're not more important than other people. And then she says, of course you are. And again, that's such a good moment from the actor, delivering it so well, where she says it with so much naivety almost, like she just believes that so wholeheartedly, and you're like, oh, okay, this is your problem.
But also Mark grew on me massively. He grows on me every single time I listen, I think because the actor is just so good again. But like, I feel like I should hand the stage over to you for discussions of Mark.
I feel like I can't say that Mark grows on me more because I feel like he's grown on me the maximum amount. I can't love Mark more than I already do.
This is true.
I do feel like I notice different things about Mark every time. What were the things this time? I don't remember off the top of my head, but no, one thing that I did notice was just the fact that he's 28. That freaked me out. I feel like I didn't pay attention to that the first time because he was in the AM for 5 years, which means that he goes away when he's 23. Horrifying. Explains a lot about his character if he's sort of mentally stuck at the age of 23.
You know, I too would be like that at this age.
Morgan, you are 23.
Yeah, God.
Yeah, I can't articulate how I feel about Mark Bryan. I really can't.
He's just such a well-rounded and well-written character because it would be so easy to make him such a just like nice character who forgives everyone for everything.
Exactly.
And him sort of setting boundaries and also being kind of morally questionable a lot of the time. And like, oh my God, I love a character who seems really nice, but there's a lot going on underneath the surface. And every time Wadsworth drops in with like little hints about what he was doing in Tier 5, and I'm like, yeah, obviously he was manipulated into everything he did, but just like the idea of him in Tier 5 being so powerful, because we barely know anything about his power, but we know that he's like insanely powerful. Like somehow, like he takes on other people's powers and he's more powerful than them when he has their powers, is what's implied. Time.
Yep.
And I love OP characters. I know it's like a trope that most people hate, but I literally search that tag on AO3 all the time with different characters. Merlin, OP, classic. Like, it's literally so satisfying, especially when a character has like suffered so much, to see them just going off. And the idea of him doing like really fucked up shit in Tier 5 itches my brain, and I want to see more. I want to know.
I do kind of love that we don't find out the details.
Definitely.
It leaves it open to speculation, which is always fun. And I feel like we get enough to get the idea of it.
It's just so good.
Ugh, Mark, we have all of the whole Damien Mark relationship in seasons 3 and 4. It doesn't happen really in seasons 1 and 2. And it does make me insane. Mark's own speculation, even in basically the last episode, when Sam was like, oh, he was going to come back and see you. Did you want that? And Mark says, I don't think so. And I still can't tell whether I cared about him on a genuine level or just because of his ability. It's just
fucked up gay people doing fucked up shit.
It's just such a fun push and pull.
The dynamics.
I remember when Lauren Shippen confirmed that Damien was in love with Mark on Tumblr, and she was like, I'm never putting this in the show, it will not be textual. And then it does get confirmed later because Sam is like, you love him, and Damien's like, no, and Sam's like, just shut up.
I love that line so much. It's so funny. The way Sam just stops fearing Damien in season 4 is so funny to me. She was like, you're a pathetic little man, and I will be mean to you. And he's like, yeah, okay. Beautiful. Incredible dynamic. No notes. Yeah. Also, Damien. I feel like we have to talk about Damien because especially season 3 and just, I mean, season 4 in general, actually, just like his arc, especially once he loses his powers and he's like, yeah, obviously I just like wait out here for a year and then you'll get over it and we'll be friends again. That's how it works. Just get on with it. Yeah. Like, just go away, get over it and come back. And Mark's like, I don't think that's how it works.
And the like horror movie situation of him saying, well, if I did have my powers, then I would have just made you all forget everything that happened, and therefore we would be friends again. And it's like, oh my god, I forgot about that speech somehow. And it's just, wow, you have magic gaslighting powers.
Yeah, man's insane.
Which is also, how much did he make Mark forget from when they were vibing together? I'd never really thought about that before, and now I will for the rest of my life, I guess, because Jesus Christ.
God. And he gets so dark in season 3, which I kind of really enjoy seeing him go off the rails because it's such a turning point in the show.
Yeah.
Like, the threat he makes against Sam chills me. I'd completely forgotten it was happening. I was literally walking around Southampton waiting to get tattoos, and then that came on and I was like, this is haunting. I'm going to have to actually turn this off.
Yeah, it's really disturbing, honestly. And it's interesting that the rest of the group try to keep it from Sam. It's just, this show is so good at having everyone keeping little secrets from each other, and you understand why everyone's motivations are, but nobody's being completely communicative and honest, and it's just so entangled and messed up. Another one that was getting me later was when he does leave for real, and Mark tells Joan he's gone now. Like, Sam's confirmed it. And then they say, oh, should we tell Adam and Caleb? And then Joan says, oh, well, Adam and Caleb think he left a month ago, so there's no reason to, you know. And it's like, why did you tell them that? That's Adam's potential kidnapper.
You know?
So you just lied? What if they had met him on the street?
Just all the lies. Beautiful.
Everyone's lying to each other all the time, but everyone is so human. Exquisitely, horrifically human.
Yeah, I wrote in my notes about season 3 finale, about Safe House. I was literally like, Damien with the steel chair, sad face.
The sad face. Please.
But it's so interesting, that episode, because they go through all these things to be like, Chloe's safe because obviously like she can't be manipulated. And it's like, they get so into the powers and the like, details that they forget that Damien is still a person
with arms.
With arms.
No, but it's such a good microcosm of like the whole issue, which is this inherent separation between humans and atypicals. And I feel like every conflict in the show kind of comes back to that in the end. Wadsworth's whole problem is that she just views atypicals as lesser than humans. Not lesser even necessarily, but just different and dangerous. Joan is constantly doing it, and Owen is constantly doing it. Even the other atypicals are doing it because they're only seeing Damien as his relative.
I took notes. I mean, my notes are not particularly helpful. I rebelled, I'm going to be an English major. One of my favourite lines.
That is such a good line, honestly. It's the panic. It's the fact that they are in this room and everyone looks at poor Adam, who is 17 at this point.
Yeah. It's like, none of you learned
anything.
Like, none of you?
And then Joan's like, I'm not a medical doctor. And they're like, don't you know anything? And she goes, CPR and the Heimlich. Like, why are you even bringing up that you know the Heimlich in this situation, Joan? Like, please. Thanks. Oh, okay. If Damien starts choking on something, then we'll be good as gold.
Woo. The last note I have is one of my favourite quotes from this series. Is, I wake up with fear on my tongue, but it's not mine, it's his. I love...
Yeah, let's talk about the Caleb thing.
God, yeah, let's talk about Caleb. My absolutely beloved.
They do such good setup for Caleb here as well for later. You can definitely feel that that's planned. That's all swirling around.
I just want to talk about the college tapes, but we can't. But,
we can't. It's fine.
It's so well set up, and it's so interesting, and it's so much. It makes sense of his whole character, but I'm not going to say any more. And we will get there fast, but...
Even what happens here is just the conversations that Caleb and Adam have about the capability to hurt people or themselves. It's so interesting. And I love that they have that conversation as well, because I feel like a lot of media... One little side note, love that post-concussion syndrome exists in this universe. They really don't go with superhero rules. They're really deconstructing all of those tropes.
Yeah. They're like, wow, he's been unconscious 10 minutes. That's actually really concerning.
Yeah, this is really bad.
He's getting brain damage.
Exactly. And Chloe, who has like a whole season of having to deal with it. But moreover, the whole conversation about it's not normal to hurt people like this. Everyone reacts to it in a very human way of like, we aren't, apart from Frank, we are not soldiers. We have not been in this situation before. And Caleb having this concern in the context of like his relationship and other people having that concern. For example, he brings up like, he's like, oh, I know Adam's parents know that I was doing it in defense of him and they don't think that I would do anything to him, but it's still this conversation that sort of needs to be had because I love how it feels so humanly dealt with.
Yeah, because like media at the moment is so desensitized to violence, so we're kind of like, oh yeah, a character is punching someone, but it's so like if you actually saw that happen, or if you did that, or if you experienced that in any way, you're just not equipped to handle that. You have no idea what to do in that situation because it's such an alien thing to actually experience.
The vast majority of people have not experienced it and would not be able to just bounce back.
And it's such an interesting parallel to like season 1 Caleb, who is literally there because he got into a fight and how he's grown, but it still affects him.
Yeah, but we do love that Caleb is always just defending people.
Yes.
Even when he nearly punches that guy at the dance because they were being annoying to Caitlin.
Yeah.
And like, did Damien kind of deserve it?
You know,
I don't think anyone deserves it. I do not believe in this kind of justice. However, self-defense is self-defense / boyfriend defense.
Do I love the trope of, wow, look what this person would do for me. It's terrible, but I kind of like it. Yes.
Yeah.
Does it actually work in canon? No. Does it work great in fanfic? Yes.
It kind of works in canon because Adam does say, I'm glad that you did that because I don't know what would have happened if Damien had taken me. And honestly, we don't. And I do love that ambiguity as well, in that Damien later says, I wouldn't have hurt anybody, I would never have made Sam do that. And then Mark's there like, how can I trust anything that you say? I think it's why Damien is so divisive in the fandom. Like, loads of people like the narrative treats him pretty badly. I feel like it's just hating on him. And then there are loads of people who are like, no, the narrative's too apologetic of him, which I love because I think it is a sign of a well-written character that nobody seems to be able to agree.
Realistically, if you knew someone like Damien, you would never ever be able to trust a single word that came out of his mouth, and you would keep far away from him.
Exactly.
But we're so used to sort of like the morally grey character being just sort of like on the side and sort of like quippy, that when they're actually played straight and dealt with seriously, people are kind of like, oh wow, you're being too mean to him. And it's like, no.
Especially if you sit down and list everything he's done. Forget Neon Darkness, because we know other things he's done. But if you just take into the context of what he's done in the Bright Sessions.
To talk about Neon Darkness for a second, not too explicitly, but even from his point of view, you are still fully aware that everything he is doing is awful.
Yeah.
And deeply, deeply questionable in all ways. And that doesn't really change, even when he's going like, oh, of course I do this because X, Y, Z, A, B, C. Do I love him? Yes. Is he literally awful? Do I love him as a character? I'll say.
Yeah, exactly.
Yes.
Same. Absolutely.
Does he horrify me on a very base level? Also, yes.
The point that gets made over and over again throughout late season 3 and season 4 is that he never did anything to try to change.
Yeah.
Which is also interesting because it gets brought up with Wadsworth here, and there's almost this argument that like Wadsworth is more capable of change than Damien. I don't think Wadsworth is particularly redeemable, but that's my own personal opinion.
But they are very well paralleled. She has that whole spiel where she basically is like, you can forgive me now, like we've moved on, which is so paralleled to Damien's like, you just take time and then it'll be fine. It's such good writing.
Shippen is the master of parallels.
Yes.
Another parallel that I obsess over every day is the Damien Sam parallels in season 4.
Ah, yes.
The conversation where Mark tells Damien to leave, and then the same conversation later, well, not the same conversation, but the conversation where Sam confesses that she's been spying on Mark, and they both have that same, I never meant to hurt you, but you have, debate, and also I don't know how to love you, or I don't know how to do this, in Damien's case, because he's not going to say that.
Yeah.
Oof.
Do we love Sam and Mark here?
Yeah.
Is it good that they break up? Also, yes.
Yeah. With all my heart, I love them, but I also don't think that they should stay together.
They were so trauma bonded.
Yeah.
And it was not good for them.
Yeah. Will I probably continue to have alternate universes in my brain where they do work out for the rest of my life? Yes. But Mark does straight up admit to being afraid of her at the end of season 4. So
yeah, morally grey Sam is so interesting because she does do that trope, which I really love, of sort of like, you think she's the nice one because she's the quiet one.
Yeah, exactly.
And as soon as she is comfortable, she starts committing war crimes. I love that.
On the subject of like mental health representation in this show, one thing that I always see people complaining about is people framing anxiety as some sort of like cutesy, like, I'm too scared to ask for ketchup situation. I feel like Sam is such a good representation of anxiety at its absolute worst because she lets it make her into a terrible person, basically. Like, she is externalizing the problem, doing horrible things as a result of being unable to manage it.
Yeah.
Is it entirely her fault she's unable to manage it? No, she's in an extremely traumatic situation. And also her therapist is not her therapist anymore. So...
And do they both get great partners later on? Maybe. Who can say? Anyway.
Who can say?
We'll have lots of conversations about that.
Are their other partners also kind of trauma bonded to them? A little bit. But
but it's fine because they're trauma bonded in a more healthy way.
If you're like 80% trauma, you have to be a little bit trauma bonded.
In order to understand Mark on a fundamental level, you have to be traumatized.
Not to talk about Mark again, but I have to talk about Mark again. I did talk about this in seasons 1 and 2 because I was like, it's interesting to me that this is already coming up and he's not even present. But I think because I was paying attention to it more this season, the way that everyone talks about Mark just makes me so... It makes me froth at the mouth. Like, he's just not humanized so often. Even the people that love him are talking about him like he's a thing all the time. When Sam finds out about Damien gaslighting Mark about her existence and her role in the rescue, she goes, how dare he take credit? And it's like, how is that your concern and not the fact that Mark has been made to question his own reality? Like, you're like, oh, excuse me, my part in this is really important. Sam.
Babes.
Girl, I love you so much, but what the fuck are you talking about?
There's that moment where Joan is on the phone to Frank, and Frank's like, yeah, Mark comes to visit me a lot when I'm on shift and we play cards. And she's like, really?
Yeah.
And she's so surprised by that.
Exactly. And then I think it's also in that conversation, because that's when Mark's missing, in inverted commas, who says he's a grown man. And she's like, I know. Or maybe she says it, but he has to confirm it for her.
He is not treated like he has any agency.
Exactly. Even in the very last conversation between Joan and Mark, it feels like Mark is asking Joan's permission to leave, to go on his little concert tour thing. And, you know, she does say, okay, but he even says at the end, like, if you tell me not to go, then I won't go. And I'm like, how is that even a possibility? Like, I feel like Joan's response there should be, it doesn't really matter what I say. At the end of the day, it is your decision. You can take into account my feelings because we love each other and we care about each other. But...
But even she especially treats him like he's still a child.
Yeah.
There's the whole thing of like Caleb is parallel to Mark a lot, and how she keeps treating Caleb like he's still a child and being like, I can't talk about this with you. And even though they're not like patient and therapist anymore.
Exactly.
It's the same with Mark. She's like treating him like he can't make his own decisions.
Yeah. As obsessive as Wadsworth is about control, Joan is obsessive about controlling knowledge, and she acts like ignorance is a shield for everybody else around her. And it's ridiculous because she's like, oh, I just won't tell people this and therefore they'll be safe. And it's like, how? What are you
That has
talking
never
about?
worked in the history of narrative ever.
It's so insane. Caleb will be like, oh, hang on, there are other AMs. What do you mean? How do they work? You're saying they communicate with other and that they operate differently. What's this about? And Joan goes, you don't have to think about it. And Caleb's like, I am going to college in a different state, possibly. I need to know. Like, how on earth would it defend him?
Like, what if I go on holiday?
Yeah.
Mark is famous for going places all the time beforehand.
Yeah, exactly.
He needs to know.
He needs to know.
What?
What if Caleb's like, oh, I want to go to London with my boyfriend on an internship or some other random possible thing, and then it turns out that the UK version of the AM are, like, terrible.
Like, hello?
You know? He's like, oh, I'll go to Australia, I want to see a kangaroo, and then it turns out the Australians actually keep all of their atypicals in a cage forever, all the time. What? Everyone is behaving ridiculously, but always coherently and always in line with their character. Beautiful.
As I learned in my creative writing class the other day, everyone has their own internal logic that doesn't necessarily understand each other's internal logic. And you have to have translators between the two internal logics in order for them to communicate, not at cross purposes.
Yeah.
I could re-listen to this show every day and still find new things to obsess about.
Yeah.
The musicals episode. Let's talk about that for a sec.
Oh my god, we haven't even talked about the musical episode. Maybe I'm being presumptuous here, but I feel like you watched a few more TV shows growing up that actually had musical episodes. Am I correct in guessing that? Because I don't think that anything that I ever was obsessed with had a musical episode until this, and it was an experience.
It's so fun.
I remember clearly sitting at my desk to listen to it and drawing throughout the whole episode, and then immediately restarting it.
A lot of this episode is like my shower music. Like, I will just listen to it and be like, wow, that's so fucked up.
It's so good.
I'd sort of forgotten about the framing because I haven't listened to the actual episode for so long, and the fact that all the dreams start out fine, and then when Rose comes back to them, they're like deeply, deeply fucked.
Yeah. Girl, what are you doing?
I feel like Rose we can't really talk about much because so much of her characterization you don't really get until you read Some Faraway Place, which you haven't read still.
I will.
It's fine. I'll forgive you.
You shouldn't.
But she's so interesting as a morally grey character, especially when compared to Damien, which, again, does happen a lot in the book. But the way that she operates, and you can understand her internal logic entirely, but she's just crossing boundaries left, right, and centre, which every character in this show has an issue with boundary crossing.
Oh god, yeah. And I almost feel like it's a little bit more possible to apologise for in Rose's sense, because she clearly has, like, an addiction.
Exactly.
And quite frankly, Joan is inviting her ex-patient to a sleepover full of mentally ill atypicals. I feel like that was a little bit... I'm not trying to be like, it should be Joan's responsibility, but it seems like a whack thing to do, knowing that Rose has a problem with dreamwalking.
Yeah.
And knowing that people may fall asleep, because it's like that kind of vibe.
Yeah. Like, Joan really should have been more there with the protection brain on.
Maybe she didn't expect everyone to be so, like, sleepy tired. She was like, wow, everyone in my life is not that terminally exhausted, and then they all are. But...
we'll come back to the musical episode in a sec. But Agent Green.
I mean, Agent Green in the musical episode, for one thing.
Agent Green in the musical episode. Just, I know in season 1-2 episode, I was like, I love him. And you were like, But, like, I feel like it's more explainable when you have season 3 and 4.
Yeah.
And especially, like, Rose's perspective of Green and the way he is, like, actively trying to change. Of all the terrible, quote-unquote, characters in this show, he's the only one who actually works for change.
Yes.
And sort of does really push toward, like, he recognizes, he doesn't apologize very well.
Yeah.
But he recognizes that he fucked up, and he recognizes that he needs essentially a morality chain, which is one of my favorite tropes.
Yeah.
And he goes about the steps to make sure that there are checks and balances to stop him from going there again.
He does apologize better than pretty much every other, like, war criminal in this show, which is a low bar.
You know, we'll take the wins.
I don't know. I feel like there were so many things about this re-listen that almost made him great on me more, though. And I'm not sure if it's just having more time to reflect on him.
I think in any other medium and any other, like, thing I've read or watched, that character archetype, I absolutely can't stand it.
Yeah.
To talk about a novel, The House in the Cerulean Sea is one of my least favourite reads of this year, because the entire plot is local man learns to have basic empathy for marginalised children, more at 6. And I really, really hate that trope with every fibre of my being. And I don't think it's that well handled in that book at all. But Agent Green, I don't know what it is about him. I don't know. He's just so mild-mannered. And you're like, sir, please, you have the moral backbone of a chocolate eclair.
He does have the moral backbone of a chocolate eclair.
But you're so interesting, and you're kind of just in love with Joan, and I kind of love that for you. And if you just stop with the war crimes, I would love you. And then he does stop with the war crimes. And I don't know, especially I think the AM archives colours my perspective of him a lot. But he lays the groundwork in these 2 seasons. The fact that he's, like, going in to check on Damien, and the fact that he's, like, trying to... Like, he recognises that he was terrible to Wadsworth when she first became director, and recognises that even though he hates her, and that she's kind of, like, a terrible person, she deserved the job way more than him, and he recognises that, like, he is not a good fit for this job, and now he's suddenly been thrust into it. He needs to find someone else to help him. Yeah. It's all the little bits.
He's very self-aware.
I do love a self-aware character. It's not just me being like, the white man. I do actually... He's just interesting.
Yeah, I do love him as a character. I just can't bring myself to like him. I think it's the way that he engages with Joan, even towards the end. He's so quick to be temperamental, and then he reels it back. Joan has also committed some crimes, but she's committed crimes in the name of protecting her family, so I'm going to give her a pass on basically all of her crimes, even though she did do some She's such a bad therapist in season 3 and 4. Jesus Christ. Abysmal. Even with Frank, when she's kind of just doing normal therapy and nothing really gets in the way of it, I'm like, hang on. Whoa.
Will admit that I did not finish the Frank episode. It is too much for me.
That's fair. It's pretty intense.
I have to skip it every time I re-listen because it's great at setting up Frank as a character and great at especially paralleling him to Caleb, but
it's heavy.
No, I actually can't do it.
Yeah, no. But she's not, wow, maybe this is the psychology degree coming in, but wow. And even, it's just her, like, constant pushing for Mark to talk, and I'm like, I know this is, like, almost 10 years old now, but we all know that you don't force people with post-traumatic stress disorder to talk about their trauma, because that makes things worse. I feel like we knew that even in 2017 or whatever it was, so Joan. I don't remember when this is set. I think it's set in like 2016, but still. No, it's 2017 because Mark's voicemail says it's 2017 last time I checked. But, ma'am, oh my god.
She's good at the research side of things and not so good at the people side of things.
No, which is kind of funny because she keeps being like held up in comparison to Wadsworth as being good at the people side of things. And it's like, she's a good person, I think, like in her personal life.
Agent Green is good at the people side of things.
Yeah.
He is. You have to give him that.
I'll give him that.
His whole episode, and he's so, like, people-focused. And the thing is, this is why Agent Green and Sam and Joan, as a trio, leading AM, works a lot better than any one of them trying to go off on their own. Because they need that balancing out.
They'll have different things covered. And really, there just needs to be an Atypical in charge of the AM.
Caleb, give him 10 years, bring him back.
Caleb, I think Caleb could do all of this, actually. I trust him 100%. Yeah,
he's the least morally questionable character in the whole show.
Yeah, taking into account the fact that he nearly beats the guy to death in the season. Yeah,
he's still the least morally questionable.
Exactly.
Even Adam has his questionable moments, whereas Caleb is just like, he has one thing: he loves his boyfriend.
Yep.
And he also wants to do social work, and I love that for him.
Exactly. I do love that little chat that Adam and Caleb have, where Adam says, "I know that you feel like maybe you're doing this because of your ability, but I feel like even if you didn't have your ability, you would still be helping people in some way or another." That's just so cute. Love that for them.
Yeah. He's just such a sunshine boy.
It's very cute seeing them like grow up in seasons 3 and 4. We need to talk about the moment where Caleb rings Joan in the middle of like serious stuff going on with Wadsworth and is like, emergency. And Joan is like, oh no, what's going on? And then he's like, I'm going over to Adam's. And she's like, isn't Adam with his aunt? And she's like, what are you talking about? How would you know that? And she's like, oh, you mentioned it in a session, I think. And he's like, no. He's at home, but I'm freaking out. And she's like, because of his aunt. And he's like, what does this have to do with his aunt? Because he has no idea. And he's like, no, I think we're gonna fuck. That's the emergency. It's such a good scene.
It's beautiful.
Code red. Everyone else is like, life or death situation.
And he's like, we might have sex. It's so funny.
Young love.
Yes.
Also, Caleb getting super drunk at the birthday party through the empathy link. What a moment.
Hey, Adam, I like your face. You know what I would love to see? I feel like the way that Wadsworth and Joan are obsessed with each other is so like psychosexual.
It is.
And so Hannibal coded.
Yeah.
Just my hot take here. I would love to see a Wadsworth Joan Hannibal AU.
I feel that. There is so much sapphic energy that I feel goes untapped.
Right?
In the right session.
Like
Sam and Joan. Wadsworth and Joan.
Yeah.
Sam and Wadsworth to some extent, quite honestly.
Yeah, the way Joan and Ellie interact every time, I'm like, are you going to kiss? Did you kiss? Have you had sex previously? What is going on here?
Literally.
There is no heterosexual explanation for this.
And I feel like this is one of the things that on Tumblr Shippen was like, no, I didn't intend it like that, but I'm like, what are you? I'm sorry. I'm definitely the author here. Are you kidding me? Are you joking?
You really wrote that and were like, that's platonic. What?
The whole of Wadsworth's breakdown, apart from Adam, is basically triggered by, I never meant to hurt Joan. It's like, what are you talking about?
She's like, Joan, I need you. You need to be my morality chain. Like, I literally, everything would have been fine if you'd just been with me. We could have ruled the world together. Run away with me. It's a queer run away with me scene, except it's running into the war crimes.
Running back to, yeah. She even breaks her dead naming policy for Joan because she's like, And it's such a tenuous connection as well, which Sam calls out. Like, oh, because Byron is Joan's favourite poet. Why do you even know Joan's favourite poet?
That's a very suspicious and sapphic thing to say. How do you know this woman's favourite? This woman doesn't read. And yet you know that she has a favourite poet, and you know who that poet is.
Does she even like poetry? I feel like she probably doesn't.
You just know she went on a rabbit hole. Like, it was like an offhand comment that Joan was like, oh yeah, I really liked this poem back at A-levels. Well, you know, US equivalent of A-levels.
I don't know.
And literally Ellie went on the biggest Wikipedia deep dive and learned everything about this man, and then was like, I too love the poem Adonis by Byron.
Got her a book of Byron poetry for the Secret Santa in the office, and Joan was like, what?
I think it would be very metal to just go out to sea and then just die. And then if you kept my heart calcified, wrapped in poetry pages on your desk, I think that would be pretty sexy.
You know? She's like, if you die first, then is it cool if I drink out of your skull? I'm just saying.
Would it be cool if we had sex on your parents' grave? I think yes. I'm not even thinking about the right person. I'm talking about someone else. I'm talking about fucking Percy Shelley. I think Percy Shelley and Lord Byron would
They were
like
friends,
being...
weren't they? They hung out.
Oh, they were friends. Yes.
Wink, wink.
Friends.
Regardless of what Percy and Byron were doing, why does Wadsworth know so much about Joan's parents as well? Joan doesn't talk about that stuff. And then she's coming out with like, when was the last time you talked to your parents? You don't get along with them. She knows all of this. What's this? She knows everything. And also Joan was like, I came to you when Mark went missing and I like cried about it to you, which is insane because she doesn't do that. So once again,
how many secret almost office makeout sessions were there? You know, there's a reason that she hates Joan and Green being together so much.
Exactly. She hates it. She hates it so much. She was so vindictive about Green. And was it just the promotion or was it because he stole your girl? And Wadsworth is sitting here like, I'm like the hottest evil genius that's ever existed. And this little like witty, smiley guy has taken my mad scientist girlfriend from me.
Wow.
How could this happen?
Joan has two hands.
I need to say this as well on the psychology situation. Wadsworth being like, I've invented a drug that makes you immune to atypical abilities. First of all, she's the only test subject, but it works. I was like, are you... like, that's just so... What do you mean? Like, for all you know, Wadsworth, you could be an atypical, and your atypicality could be resistance to other atypicals. You do not have the data to say it works. And I know she's not like... I know none of these people are ethical scientists, but it's the scientific method. Do some trials. What are you talking about? And also she was like, oh, I was confident that it would work before I put it on. How? If you're the first test subject, how did you know?
Because she is simply infallible.
An arrogant bastard, I know. But also, what the fuck are you talking? It was just, oof. All of the... Okay, I feel like one of the things that grates on me a little bit with seasons 3 and 4 is the way that the abilities start to lean a bit more magic, and I know that this is something you like.
Say what you want to say before I agree either way, because I have opinions.
Okay, well, I just feel like a lot of it stops making any sense.
Mm-hmm.
It's this thing of atypicals being fundamentally different to humans. It's implied that they're all different in their own special way. Like, Damien's differences are what means that he can't go to a regular hospital, but they're different from... you know, a time traveler's differences, a telekinetics differences, whatever. So we can't use the information that we have about that to know how to treat Damien necessarily. Because he's the only one we have with this power, he's the only like example that we have of it. Sure, Mark can do anyone's powers. Is his brain structure changing every single time? Because that's insane. And then again, we have physical abilities, we have pyrokinetics, we have super strength. So it can't just be brain structure. So, and he can do all of those things. So...
This is the thing, is as soon as we get into the physical abilities, my suspension of disbelief starts to meander a little bit, because all of the original cast we're introduced to are mental abilities. Yeah. And those make sense in the world that's being constructed to the extent that the science makes any sense.
Yeah, it doesn't make sense that Mark should be able to do anything. Because, I mean, this was my like big theory, and I guess I can say it because it's not true. There's a higher number of atypicals in the population, it's growing. Also, the way that genetic abilities work is that they're passed down basically randomly. Like, Owen at one point is like, oh yeah, people tend to be from the same class. But I mean, it's a classification system. Like any classification system, it's driven to human error. So I don't trust that. And we do still have exceptions, like, for example, Caleb and Alice. Alice has like a physical ability. Caleb has empathy. This is not the same. So my whole argument was, if Mark exists as he does, surely anyone can have any power, in theory. It's an epigenetic thing or something. There is just a way of activating it. So there shouldn't be a fundamental difference between atypicals. Like, I understand, for example, Wadsworth's point that, we don't have something that regulates Class D or time travel abilities yet because we haven't developed that drug. That makes sense. Fine. But particularly in the way as well that abilities manifest in terms of they seem to relate to people's personalities to some extent, like Sam's time travel is her anxiety response, which removes her from the situation. It feels like she could have developed any ability, but that was the one because she was having such an anxious time. Because it's such a big sticking point in the plot that we can't go to normal hospitals.
It's weird.
And also, why haven't atypicals been outed every single time some poor guy fell down the stairs?
Because all of the abilities that we see do seem to be mental health stemming. Because especially in the bonus episodes, we get the non-binary person who can shapeshift. We get the person who kind of just doesn't want to exist, who can go invisible. Surely someone by this point would have done research that goes, oh, actually everyone's normal until they have a traumatic event that then triggers the power.
And even if there are some people that are atypical and some people that are not, fine. But again, it seems like anyone who's atypical, because Mark is the fucking key to this whole thing. But because Mark exists, surely you can have any ability, in theory. If you have the ability source, whatever it is. Once you have it, you have it. And even we have Frank, who can have empathy put into him. Like, he is capable of it. Like, his brain structure is capable of it. He has the sensory organs that are necessary to pick up on other people's empathy. Because it's a serum, it's not like a fucking implant. Like, maybe I'm just being too sciencey here, but I just...
Possibly.
I know maybe that's like one of those situations where it's like, they just didn't think about it that hard, but I've thought about it so hard for so many years.
Don't bring your hard rational thoughts into this soft irrational system.
I went and did a psychology degree at least a little bit because of this show.
Except the thing is that it's a soft rational system.
Is it rational though?
I think it is because of the way, because all of these powers seem to be stemming from different mental health issues.
Yeah.
That I would put it on the axis of rational rather than irrational.
Yeah, I think that's fair.
Because the way that a magic system is perceived, because I'm currently writing an essay about magic systems, to the author it's always going to be hard rational, almost all the time.
Yeah.
But what the audience perceives it as depends on the information you've communicated. So I would say this leans into soft rational from an audience perspective, especially since we've analysed it so much. But musical episode. We should talk about the musical episode.
I love the musical episode. I had such a good time. I do think Shippen improves massively by the time she's writing in Strange Words. I can see what the attempt was here in terms of writing a musical, not going into poetic language, which wouldn't make any sense for this show, in that it's like a very slice of life kind of vibe, and everyone speaks very naturally. So I think it would be really jarring if the songs went like that, if they diverged and they were massively floral. But I almost think they're a little bit too simple, a lot of them. A lot of like rhyming the same word with the same word, which is a pet peeve of mine. But I still love the musical episode with my whole heart.
Oh, I just love it. I mean, I love In Strange Woods with every fibre of my being.
I love In Strange Woods. I think In Strange Woods is fantastic.
Do I hate the main character? Yes.
Oh, what, the journalist man?
Yeah.
I thought you meant Peregrine for a second. I was like, what's wrong with Peregrine exactly?
No one can hate Peregrine.
Exactly.
She's just a little bit fucked up. But this journalist man who actually comes in and you're like, okay, he's like, I'm not a true crime fan from the beginning anyway.
Yeah.
At the end, and you find out that he had ulterior motives the entire time? No, I'm going to throw up. Get away.
But the Bright Sessions musical episode before we...
They're all so fucked up, and you get so into their psyche, and Rose is literally just standing there, like, T-posing, being like, what did I sign up for?
Exactly.
Get me out of here, please.
It's really funny at the end when Owen, well, not Owen, but her little conscience, who's taking the form of Owen Green, is like, what were you expecting? And she was like, I don't know, they seemed well-adjusted. It's like, in what way? Because you met them in such an insane context anyway. You met them when they were like, hang on, you made friends with this random guy in a normal circumstance? That's terrible. He's an attempted kidnapper.
Agent Green's reprise is one of my favourite things in all time.
I always love a reprise, and it's such a good reprise.
And the way she's just panicking and he's just like talking to her very calmly and being like, I don't know what you were expecting.
Also, have to say, we've said that there was a big quality jump between seasons 2 and 3, but the sound design, fantastic. And particularly in this episode, it's like, it's golden. It's beautiful. It's so good.
Yeah. The way that you jump into Caleb's dream with the cheering and then jump out again, and you can it feels so dynamic.
Yeah, the floodlights going off at the end of Caleb and Adam's duet. Obsessed.
Does Adam being there make any sense?
Do you remember?
If you actually put the world building in? No.
I need people who are listening to this now for the first time to understand the complete chaos that was going on in the fandom. Everyone was losing their minds because everyone thought it meant something much more than what it was. People were theorizing that Adam was atypical. People were coming up with abilities. We were losing our minds. And in fact, that conversation that happens later where they're like rehashing it, Adam says, "Oh, kind of funny that I was in your dream." And Caleb goes, "Yeah, Dr. Bright said that like maybe it was because I have empathy and it was like interacting funnily with you." I feel like they only put that in because we all went so completely insane thinking that Adam was atypical.
Literally doesn't explain anything. It's a bunch of nonsense words. And B, I am such an atypical Adam truther, and I will down this hill, especially if you consider that maybe Wadsworth could be atypical. Atypical Adam just makes so much sense.
Atypical Adam does make so much sense.
And I will die on this hill.
But it is so funny. I feel like it was actually just that it needed to be a duet because that was clearly the best possible thing for them as a song. And it being Adam's honest feelings worked quite well.
Just establish that dream sharing is possible.
Yeah.
And then it would have been fine. It could be so interesting to have it have been entirely Caleb's point of view.
Yeah, true.
And sort of the way that he is seeing Adam.
Yeah.
Because it's all Caleb's anxieties.
Yeah.
And Adam's just like, everything will be fine. And Caleb's like,
no.
And especially when we get to college tapes and stuff like that.
Yeah, exactly. This is also really interesting groundwork for college tapes, particularly that episode.
Can't wait to re-listen to the college tapes. It literally rewired my brain.
Sam's song and the parallel of Sam and Mark both being in England at different times in their dreams, obviously unable to find each other. Thanks, didn't need my heart. I will say that Mark's is the one that made me bawl the first time I listened to the episode, though, and it's the one that still almost gets me every time. Jesus Christ.
Yeah.
The fairy tale references, because it starts off with this conversation with Joan. I always have this like mental image of him walking through like pictures of them as children or something, through like, I don't know, maybe like their childhood home.
And the parallel to Sam and Mark's conversation about like knights and dragons.
Yep.
The bit where he addresses Joan at the end of the song and he's like, "And you, Joni, no matter what you do, Joni."
No.
Just execute me on the spot. I've cried enough. They're all so unwell and I love them so much.
On the subject of heartbreaking moments, the argument between Sam and Mark, where Sam has just had her little casual anxiety attack, and then Mark says, "Ooh, I think I might be leaving," which is a really bad time to bring it up. I'm going to criticize Mark for one thing in my life. That was not a good time to bring it up. Is there ever a good time with these people? Probably not, but it was still a bad time to bring it up. And then Sam starts panicking because she's like, "I can't leave my parents." Then she ends up going back to the accident. And then there is that horrific moment of silence. I remember listening to that for the first time and being like, where is Mark going? Sam? And realizing that he had gone with her. And then they come back and he's in pieces. It's the worst. Oh my God. I remember having to pause because I was like, I'm freaking out myself.
I was actually listening to that episode today and I was waiting for him to go, "Sam." So I was still waiting. I completely forgot. And then they came back and he was crying. And I was like, I'm actually going to throw up.
It's so bad.
I'm so upset.
It's horrific.
And the fact that like, it never even crossed their minds before that they could like travel together and then accidentally leave each other behind. Like,
yeah. I mean, to be fair, I think they mentioned that they had been like low-key worried about it, but I thought they were like, oh, Mark's kind of got it under control and Sam's kind of got it under control.
Oh boy.
Because they had been thinking about traveling together. They had that conversation later, that they were thinking about doing it on purpose.
But that man does not have anything under control. That man needs to go see a therapist. That is not his sister or trying to kidnap him.
He needs a therapist so bad.
Yeah, oh God, that moment of silence, literally.
Oh, it's so bad. That's sound design. That's what audio drama is for, baby. That wouldn't work in any other medium.
I'm such a big fan of silences in audio drama. Like, to talk about the Atypical ones again for a sec, I literally annoy our sound editors so much by being like, could you just put could it be a second longer? Could it just be like 5 seconds longer? Could we just have a really long pause here? And they're like, what? And I'm like, no, trust me. Trust me for the bit. You can't use them in any other medium, but in this medium, they have so much weight.
But you can use a silence in film, but like you still have a visual component. It's just completely different. Because with an audio drama, if you are having a silence, you are just locked out of what is happening. You can't see people's expressions. You can't see if people are present, like in the case of the Sam and Mark situation. You're just in the dark, so it gives that feeling of like, I just don't know, and that unsettling.
It's so good. I can envision just everything about that pause.
Yeah.
Misha Stanton.
Honestly.
Set the standard too high.
I mean, like, thank you, but oh my God.
Oh my God. Leave some talent for the rest of us.
Yeah. And also, as we're on the subject of the crew, Evan Cunningham, the music getting so much more vibey. And one thing that I forgot about was just the beautiful instrumental version of Rose's song at the end of the musical episode, which is playing over the credits. Love that. Gorgeous. It's just such a beautiful arrangement.
Yeah. I have emotions, and I don't know what to do with them, except listen to the AM archives. Can we do that now?
Let's just do it now.
I just sit here on the call for the next 6 hours, and then we'll talk about it.
I don't think I can listen to the AM archives in one go. I need emotional breaks between certain episodes of the AM archives.
God, that's so true, actually.
I will say, joining us on the Bright Sessions journey for the first time, please be aware that the AM archives is very different tonally. And there are trigger warnings at the beginning of episodes and in episode descriptions, I'm pretty sure, but just it's a different kettle of fish.
Yeah.
And also, as I'm on my psychology rambling today, even though I've only got a bachelor's, so don't, take me too seriously, everyone. As we're listening to the Bright Sessions at the moment, they have a BetterHelp sponsorship. Please don't
my God, I needed to talk about this. Jesus Christ, every time. The beginning of every episode, I was just skipping a minute in, being like, Lauren, please free me. This is awful in retrospect.
Yeah, it's funny because you listen to some of them and then there's still like a Casper mattress advertisement that they haven't edited out at the end or something. But, I don't know how old the BetterHelp ones are. I don't know if they'll still be there when people are listening to this. I guess you could be listening to this 10 years in the future. Maybe they're being sponsored by trips to Mars. But if you're listening to this and you're thinking about using BetterHelp, please don't use BetterHelp. You can Google them. They've had data breaches. They don't vet their therapists very well. You can get therapy online if you do not feel comfortable getting therapy in person through other mediums. BetterHelp is not the way to go.
Yeah.
I'll put some stuff in the bloody show notes.
I used BetterHelp for 2 whole months.
Yeah.
And I had a single text conversation with a therapist in those 2 months. That was all I got. Yeah, it's awful.
Yeah. So in conclusion, please don't.
Please don't.
Please don't. Simply don't. Simply do not. If you have listened to the Bright Sessions and realised that you're perhaps more mentally ill than you thought you were, which is an experience that I can relate to, go elsewhere.
Go elsewhere.
Actually, here's the question that I have for you.
Yeah.
As a writer, like, what are some takeaways that you feel like you've... I know.
I was like 15 at the time.
I know, but is there anything conscious... I mean, I'll use a parallel to a real-life situation that I had recently. I was chatting to a colleague of mine about a work-in-progress project. I was talking about my characters and how they're not necessarily people who are acting in the interest of the greater good all of the time. And they came at me with the, well, why would anyone root for them then? And because I'm re-listening to the Bright Sessions as we speak, obviously that was on my mind. And I thought that was just an interesting... Okay, we were like 15. I hadn't that much media with characters that I feel are this... Not even morally great. It's not like they're doing things that other characters wouldn't. Like, I'd come across mass murderers and things, that was fine. But I think it's just the way that it really tried to understand the logic, as you put it earlier, behind everyone's decisions and really inhabit everybody. Like, I feel like Shippen is a very empathetic writer and that she really does try to understand where everyone is coming from.
Yeah, I would say how honest the characters are. There's no sanitizing. This is what I talk about a lot with the Attic monologues, is the sort of the sanitized depiction of mental health that is so common in modern media, and how I very explicitly don't do that. And my characters are very mentally unwell and they do kind of terrible things, sometimes to each other, but they are so deep in their mental illness that like that is the only logical way that they would act.
Yeah.
And I think probably my ability to do that honestly comes from seeing it done first in this show.
I see that. I feel like there is a lot of, we mentioned briefly before, Sam's messed up behaviour due to her controlling tendencies because of her anxiety. One thing that I do remember really resonating with me, even as like a teenager, was the fact that Mark's trauma makes him a very angry and distrustful person, even if he doesn't present like that. Like, he is very kind outwardly, arguably a bit grumpy, as Caleb says at one point sometimes, but he is usually trying to see the best in people, but it's clearly a very active decision. And then whenever you do get an insight into him internally, which luckily you do in this show because there's empaths and mind readers and dreamwalkers running around, you realize that that is not what is going on beneath the surface. And then it does obviously come out at certain times in certain ways. But then I feel like that's true of everyone to some extent, which is fun.
Ultimately, reword my brain and I will know its effects for many years.
One thing I have to say before we finish as well, because I just remembered. Chloe's mum, after all that stuff that I did for the AM, I didn't do all of that for bad things to happen to... What? Hello?
What
Anyway.
happened? Give us the backstory. Jesus Christ.
Slight spoiler, I guess, to people that haven't listened to the rest of the show, that we never fucking find out what that is, but what the fuck was that?
Yeah.
Lauren, I know you know. I'm coming to your full party.
Yeah. Even, like, most of the Order lore, like,
yeah,
even in the mini episodes, even in all of that, even with all of the Mr. Sandoval stuff, we're not given any of it. Please.
Some of the way that this structure works doesn't make sense to me. Why does this branch of the AM have a different classification system to everybody else? They say this. What? That's insane. How is Wadsworth reporting anything to HQ if they have their own classification system that Joan can just overhaul?
You know.
Anyway, it's fine. Everything's fine.
It's fine. I just need one of those like MCU guides books, but for the Bright Sessions.
Same. Yeah.
Give me a non-fiction book. Give me one of Joan's essays. I would pay good money for that, please.
Yes. I want the essay that completely changed the way that Joan thinks about atypical abilities that Wadsworth wrote. That's what I want.
Yes. Just give me all of it. As we know, I will read so much in-universe non-fiction, and I love it.
This isn't non-fiction, but I have an important question for you. You've read the Mark Joan notebook, right?
No.
Oh my god. Okay, well, this is a great... I feel like this is also a thing that people who are listening now will often have missed, because it was, again, one of those things that just sort of got posted to Tumblr while the show was airing, and it might even have been before you got into it that I read. I don't know. Anyway, there is a little notebook scanned in page by page. It's on the Bright Sessions website now, and it is a notebook that Joan kept. I think the in-universe explanation is that she was trying to help Mark learn to write because of their terribly neglectful parents, and it's little notes between the two of them, and it goes all the way from them being like very young kids to them being like in college, and it has a lot of stuff about Mark's powers developing. Morgan is screaming silently. Have you not seen this?
No, I don't think I have.
I will send this to you the minute this is over, but it's beautiful, and I was just thinking about it a lot while we're listening.
Oh my god.
If you are listening to this and you haven't read that and you want more of Mark and Joan's relationship, I will link it in the show notes because it's so good and it makes me feel so many things. Okay, recommendations for season 3 and 4 specifically of the Bright Sessions. Do we have any?
The Heroes TV show.
Oh.
I don't know if I've mentioned it on the podcast before. I was forced through the first season by my father, and then I watched the entire rest of it. Gets worse after season 1 because of the 2007 writer's strike. But season 1, a bunch of different people all over the world have superpowers.
Yeah.
And it's how they all end up coming together. Because you have this cheerleader who's like a teenager, and she's immortal, and she keeps filming her death attempts, and she's like, look, I'm not dead. I'm real fucked up, but I'm not dead. And then you have this guy who's like the brother of a senator, who's like, yeah, I can mimic people's powers. And then I kind of just end up collecting powers like their Pokemon cards. And now I'm kind of like all powerful. And then there's an office worker from Japan who's like, I can stop time. And it's just sort of like them all weaving together and how their powers work and figuring it all out. And then there's, you know, like a secret government agency. And there's like a villain who's like, I was not loved enough as a child. And his power is like figuring out how things work, and the logical progression of that is that he can take other people's powers, he can figure out how they work and then like take them out of their brains, and he's trying to get to the cheerleader because she's immortal. The tagline is save the cheerleader, save the world. It's very good if you like superpowers and how they interact with everyday life, because it is a sort of very much like grounded superhero story.
Yeah.
And you've got all these different people from all these different walks of life. Their priority is not the superpower. They've got other shit going on. And I feel like that parallels nicely here.
Yeah. I will just say, it feels like this should be the other way around, this recommendation, but much has been made in the Bright Sessions / Heartstopper fandoms of the fact that Caleb and Adam and Nick and Charlie are basically the same characters, but one is the British version of them, and one is the American version of them. So if somehow you've not read Heartstopper, or seen Heartstopper, I suppose, and you love Caleb and Adam, and you want slice of life, coming of age, struggles, and mental health, and growing up and going off to uni and all of that stuff, same characters, different font, quite frankly.
Yes.
You will probably love them. Things I've recommended before. The Shapeshifter by Ali Sparks, mental health and powers, intersecting, secret government agencies, conspiracies, etc. If you listen to this and you went, I wonder if Mark had been evil, how fucked up would that have been? Then you should definitely read the Shapeshifter books. That's all I'll say. Inhibit by Eve Greenwood, which is a webcomic, which is about a halfway house, like foster care. If they can't manage their powers, it's very much like a power normative world. It's not secret, but it is also very much about how power intersects with mental health and disability. And there's definitely secret government conspiracies and organizations going on. We're not quite there yet because this is still an ongoing series, but it is also extremely queer. If you enjoyed that aspect of the Bright Sessions as well, long may it continue.
Oh, the magicians.
Oh, yeah.
And how mental health and magic intersect, and the fact that magic does not fix your mental health issues, even if you think it does. Please don't stop taking your depression meds, Quentin. You actually kind of need those.
Yeah. Indeed.
It's really concerning that the faculty literally told you to throw them away because you don't need them anymore. You do.
Why did you trust that man? I'm not going to be mean to him. It was.
But we love our depressed bisexual king.
We do. On that note, archives at some point, I guess.
Yes. Until then, you're always welcome through the bookcase.
Don't forget to scratch the cat on your way out.